What's up, everybody? This is Rob Shack. So today we're moving on to part 16, maybe, of our Gran Turismo 3 Rival Series thing. This is going to be the Ford Escort Rally Car versus the Ford Focus Rally Car. So we'll get this going. I'll describe what we're going to do as I drive them both. But thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Help me get to 1,000 subs. We're trying to get there so that YouTube will promote classic games, because these are not high on their little search engine things. I'm trying to get more people to know about my channel. Only 7% of y'all are sub too, so hopefully more people sub. But yeah, so if you're new to the channel, what I'm doing here, there's a cop drives by my house. What I do in this channel is I do a lot of different content for a lot of different things. But with this video, if you're new to this video series, I pick cars in Gran Turismo 3 that generally are similar in stats. As I've said before, and I'll say it again if this is your first time watching these. Gran Turismo 3 didn't really have a lot of cars, so what they did was they basically created rivalries between cars. So certain cars have certain powers, and then that's how they basically made their races. Was they basically made races based on these little series of cars that had similar stats. So you'll see when I do these, continue along in this video, the Ford Escort and the Ford Focus are very similar, and so naturally you have a lot of races at the beginning of the game where the Ford Escort, as I overbreak that, so don't blame the Ford Escort for that one. The Ford Escort and the Ford Focus are in a lot of races together at the beginning of the game as like primary race car series things. I think the GT World Championship, which is what I'm going to do later, we'll get there, will be the race where I show the AI battling. But we have a lot of races at the beginning of the game where you have these rally cars racing each other, and you're, as a player, exposed to like preliminary race cars. So cars with racing tires, quick accelerations, good handling compared to road cars. And it was the way to kind of break everybody into the thing. But since they didn't have a lot of cars, what they ended up doing was just basically making like a bunch of cars, like a few cars that just had similar stats, so that when you go to the GT World Championship, you're racing against all cars that have about 300 horsepower or whatever it was. And when you tune them up, they're still so similar. So like the Ford Escort and the Ford Focus have very similar stats all the way through. So what I think Polyphony was, and this is not even guaranteed, but what Polyphony was doing was basically creating a way to have a replayability where you don't have to have a lot of cars, but you still want to try all the races because you want to see what rivalries happen and what cars beat other cars, and it makes it more interesting that way. So that's what we're doing here. So we have the Ford Escort 98 rally car and the Ford Focus, I think it's 99 rally car, and these two cars are very, very good, sound very similar because they're both American. I do notice when I do these things, there's usually one of the cars has a little bit more power, the other one usually has a little bit more handling, and if there's three cars that are similar, they usually have, one that's kind of in the middle. So we'll see how these cars are. I'll actually now finally talk about these two cars that I'm going to be using here. So I'm using the Ford Escort right now, driving it on complex string. I'm going to drive both these cars on complex string, talk about each one, and then I'm going to do a AI race where I compare the AI racing each other, and then I'll end the video with a max speed test between the two with my stats. So that's kind of how we do this thing, and that's, further proves that I think Polyphony was just trying to compensate for not having a lot of cars. They made a lot of cars, or they made enough cars to have variety in each race where you don't get a lot of duplicate cars, because there's not a lot of races with duplicate cars unless they're doing a one-make race. So then you have a lot of different cars racing, and you never know who's going to win. And since they're all similar stats, you really don't know as the player, and it makes it kind of exciting. So that's what I think they were going for. Anyway, I'm going to move on now and actually talk about the car. Ford Escort looks sick. I kind of wish this car was still a thing. The Ford Escort, even in its stock form, looks awesome. I think it's a very good-looking car. And obviously with liveries and liveries on it and decals all over the place, it looks sick. But the rally car, it's got very, very good handling. I have had a little bit of trouble with the brakes. I would keep expecting to be able to brake late with this thing since it's a race car, but its brakes seem a little bit slower than other cars. Its speed is very good. I'm going to have to kind of compare their speeds. I actually don't know because I haven't driven this car very much, so I'll have to compare and see their top speeds and stuff like that. But it seems good. It doesn't seem like it has a lot of turbo lag. It seems like a lot of cars in this game, there'll be one that generally suffers from more turbo lag, or when you get near the high RPMs and right when you downshift to the low RPMs, you see drastic changes in speed. This car seems to have a very good, very even amount of efficiency with its power outage, so that's good. Obviously, you want a car that doesn't just I just drove off the road there, but just destroyed that little sign. I kind of forgot that those things go flying. But yeah, this car seems to have decent handling. Seems like once you kind of get the car unsettled, it does kind of fall apart. Because I've noticed that if I brake in late, that's not a word. As I brake late, it does seem like the car just like panics and can't really handle it. But if you keep the car under control, you do a really good job. So handling is good for this car. Speed is good, given that it only has 520 horsepower or something like that. But it does seem like its speed is very efficient with its output. It doesn't seem like it has a lot of turbo lag. Again, it looks good, sounds great. I'm very curious about what this car's speed will be compared to the Ford Focus. It seems like it's going to I'm going to guess that this car is going to have a little bit more power. It's going to have a little bit faster top speeds and a little bit faster use of it's going to be a little bit more I'll say like a little bit more just powerful in general. It seems like it has a little bit more torque compared to the Ford Focus, but it seems like it might have a little bit less handling. I could be wrong here, so I'm going to kind of go through this with you as the audience here. We're going to kind of figure this out together, but it seems like it does a good job of, like, just right there as it was about to downshift to the 6th gear, and then it like continued to accelerate, and then once it downshifted, it didn't just jump up in speed a lot. It actually seemed like it was pretty efficient in its power. So I think I'll give, if I had to assume here, and I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the Ford Focus. If I had to assume here, I would say that the Ford Focus is going to have a little bit more handling, be a little bit more inconsistent in its power, and they'll both look great. That's not a problem. So yeah, the Ford Escort does have, how much power is that? 518. The Focus is listed as 529, so we'll see if that actually makes a difference. But the Ford Focus, I think, doesn't look as good as the Ford Escort. I mean, obviously the Ford Focus rally car is actually based on like a test car, so it makes a lot of sense that it doesn't have a lot of decals and stuff on it. It's very simple, very plain in its design, and that's because it's not actually the real Ford Focus rally car that they were using over the years at this time. I think this is like a gen, I don't remember what gen this Ford Focus. I think this might actually be the first generation of the Ford Focus, but we'll see. Actually, if someone knows that, let me know in the comments. But yeah, the Ford Focus seems like it is a trial car. It has very little decals on it. The Escort is very much the like actual Ford Escort rally car. And you know how I know that is because in later games they actually removed some of the decals on the car because I think it was actually too close to the real thing, and there's like copyright issues there. So I think they actually legitimately had to remove stuff on the car because it has a lot of decals that are in later series all removed. I think that's fascinating when they do stuff like that, but it's probably because they got a little too close to comfort, and so they probably get like kind of threatened. No, like a low-key threatened by the people, like, hey, you made it look a little bit too much like the car. Can you remove some decals, put some extra Gran Turismo logos on there? And I think that's what they did. But I'm actually very surprised here as I'm driving this car. This car does have more power, and the handling is actually a little bit worse than I expected. It's a lot harder to keep this car controlled. I'm not really, I have to study the turbo lag a little bit more, but yeah, this car's handling is actually worse. So what I just said like 2 seconds ago, I'm going to say I was wrong. I think the Escort has the better handling. The Focus seems to have a little bit more power, but I'm going to notice how efficient that is with the turbo lag and stuff like that when we get up in higher speeds. I wasn't really paying attention at the beginning. I was still talking. But I'm going to notice that and see what's going on there. But yeah, the handling on this car is very much worse. It seems a lot more unstable. It really wants to slide out more. It seems like you could really bully some other cars on the road with this thing. You could really slide this car all over the place and people would not be able to get past you. So it's interesting how that is. Again, this car sounds great, just like the Escort. That's not really a comparison. They both sound amazing. They both have that good rally car sound. It's probably basically the same sound because, again, this is one of those things where I wish that they had put a stock road car of the Escort and a road car version of the Ford Focus in this game. I kind of forgot about this, but there's no Ford Focus road car in this game, even though that's like a pretty big deal, and it would have been really easy to throw a Ford Focus road car into this game, but they didn't. I don't know why they did that. So I think that's really strange. Again, that's one of those things where I'm like, they could have done that. They could have added a road car for the Ford Focus. Now, I actually give them credit for not adding a Ford Escort road car in the game because they've never done that. It was just a stock image in Gran Turismo 2. They never actually put a Ford Escort in these games except for the rally car. So, but the Ford Focus has been in every game ever except for 3. So I'm like just surprised that they didn't do that. But anyway, handling of this car is pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. It is very hard to keep this car under control. It does not want to steer as well either. It seems a lot more of a straight line car. The Escort, once you get it going on this turn, it's just good. I think the Escort had a little bit of a like, when you start to steer, it seems like it's a little bit not responsive, but once it starts to go and turn, it's like really, really good. This car seems really touchy, but then it doesn't turn very well. So it's like kind of weird about how it does that. I'll look at the turbo lag when we get towards this corner here. As we get near, actually, that's gonna be impossible for me to notice. I have no idea. But it seems like the turbo lag honestly was kind of fine there. As we accelerate here, it just seems like it keeps accelerating, and it kind of keeps accelerating. So I think that's actually not a problem. So I thought that was gonna be a bigger deal than it was as well. It's just the handling of this car is pretty rough. Not gonna lie. Struggling to keep this car on the apex, even though I know exactly where it is. Usually the first car I struggle with that, but it's more because I'm just doing the video live and everything. And as y'all know, I am doing this video live as I play through it. You probably hear the controller too if you listen hard enough. But yeah, so this car definitely is not the handling beast that I thought it was going to be. I kind of figured it would be, but yeah, the handling is rough for this car. Power seems good. I think it's a little, I mean, it is going to have a little bit more horsepower, and I think that actually shows. The turbo lag seems fine. It has a very efficient output of its power. It doesn't slow down at the high RPM, or slow down at the high RPMs and speed up suddenly right when you downshift like some cars do. But yeah, the handling is pretty rough. So I think I would have to give it's. I mean, this is again what I've noticed with all these Polyphony rivalry series I've done. The cars seem to be, one of them is the more power operated one, and one of them is the more handling operated. I was just wrong this time and thought it was going to be the Escort was going to be the power one. Escort. It would be power. I'm sorry. I thought the Escort was going to be the powerful one, but it's the handling one, and the Focus is the power car and not the escorting one. Or not the, wow, goodness. The Focus is the car with no handling and has more power. And the Escort is the one with more handling and no power. That's what I'm trying to say. We're good. Mouthful to get through that. Anyway, so yeah, we're good here. I think the Focus is probably still going to have a better lap time because I messed up with the Escort at the first turn. That was not the Escort's fault. But yeah, this car, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty good. You can use its kind of brutish nature to take corners aggressively. It's kind of cool. But if you're new to this, I would probably say start with the Escort, then work your way up to the Focus. So now what we're going to do is go into another race here. I'm going to show you the AI as they drive each one, see how they do, and we'll have a good time with that. So thank you all for watching so far, and I will just cut out any of the first part. So we'll go right to the replay of the Escort and the Focus. Ready, so here we go. We now have a race. I'm driving the Toyota Celica rally car, but there's the Escort and the Focus starting in 5th and 4th respectively. It's not very good, honestly. But then they both end up hitting this Exara, who can't accelerate to save his life. I then pushed the Escort up because, of course, he was getting stuck behind the C-West, and I was like, no, I want them to be near each other just to kind of see what happens here. And so I wanted to, I think I'm already ahead of them. I don't think I'm actually, no, I'm right here next to them. So I come in, just trying to make a clean pass, which is not that clean, but then all that I was going for was keeping the Escort and the Focus together here, and they stayed together, so that was good. And now we'll see what happens here. So spoiler alert, they don't do very well, so I don't know if that's like an insult to these two people, but like the C-West just comes in and pushes the Escort out of the way there, and then probably is going to push him out of the way over here too. Escort has taken that corner horribly, and now is really, really far behind. Focus is battling the C-West Razzo Silvia, and losing. And the Escort is very far behind now. Hopefully it's still in the draft. If that doesn't happen, then it's just a bummer. Focus has, I never noticed that the Focus has little like shield thingies on the doors there. That's kind of interesting. But he's just dueling the C-West Razzo, which actually allows for the Escort to get close again, so at least that makes me feel better about that. And the Exara just takes off and is gone. So let's see how the Escort does. The C-West Razzo is catching up pretty close. It's pretty embarrassing that the Ford Escort did not even get close. So they really didn't do very well. I thought they were gonna like be good and stuff, but yeah, it's not looking that way right now. So we'll see. Maybe if they had more lap times, they could have done it. but it looks like it's going to be the Ford Focus being better than the Escort, even though it's not even so much that that's true. It's just they both kind of did bad, and the COS Razzo kind of messed with them both. But I don't even know. It's kind of weird, honestly. They stayed in each other's draft, so it's not like it was one of those problems. But it's like the Focus basically, the Escort got pushed off the road by the COS, but then they were all in each other's draft. But then the Escort just couldn't even catch up in the draft, so that was kind of funny, I guess. I don't really know what happened with that. But now it's the Escort is rolling up in last. Focus is in 5th. Focus is still trying to keep up with the COS Razzo, but it's not looking too good. I don't think they're gonna pass each other. At least the Escort did stay in the draft, so that's kind of nice. But who knows? Maybe if they had another lap, it could have been different. But also, that's part of the thing with this is you like it's just you get to see what happens with the AI battles. You never know what's gonna happen with the AI battle, obviously. So now what we're gonna do is I'll show a max speed test between the two cars, see which one is actually faster. Still a good battle between the Focus and the COS Razzo, who's still a good car. But yeah, the Xara and the whatever the other one was, the Apex thing, those two cars just destroyed. So now we'll do that max speed test, and then we'll end the video there. So thank y'all for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. Y'all are great. Enjoy the rest of the video. Peace.